Welcome back, everybody. After months of waiting and countless articles talking about how behind they are compared to their peers, Apple finally released a detailed look at what they're planning related to AI. Although AI now meaning Apple intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. So in this video, we're going to break down the most interesting features that Apple announced, go back to see how closely it matched up to what I was expecting, and then talk about if I think it's enough to bring growth back to Apple stock. So let's go ahead and get started. Apple had their Worldwide Developer Conference this week, and they provided the most detail yet about what they have planned for AI. But not AI as in artificial intelligence, because what they're calling it now is Apple Intelligence.
Apple Intelligence is the personal intelligence system that puts powerful generative models right at the core of your iPhone, iPad, and Mac. It draws on your personal context to give you intelligence that's most helpful and relevant for you. It protects your privacy at every step, and it is deeply integrated into our platforms and throughout the apps you rely on to communicate, work, and express yourself.
And this is classic Apple. They're putting their own spin and branding on it, and even in the ads that have shown up since, they're talking about it in a different way. It's not that scary AI that you're worried about, it's AI for the rest of us, done by Apple. So regardless of what you think about Apple as a company or even as a stock, this is really well done because people don't usually respond to features or even the quote-unquote innovation. They respond to their own perception of the features, and Apple is simply a master at molding that perception. It's as simple as that. But speaking of features, they went on to talk about some that are going to be included, especially around language understanding and generation.
Language and text are fundamental to how we communicate and work. And the large language models built into Apple Intelligence deliver deep, natural language understanding, making so many of your day-to-day tasks faster and easier. For example, your iPhone can prioritize your notifications to minimize unnecessary distractions while ensuring you don't miss something important. Apple Intelligence also powers brand new writing tools that you can access system-wide to feel more confident in your writing. Writing tools can rewrite, proofread, and summarize text for you, whether you're working on an article or blog post, condensing ideas to share with your classmates, or looking over a review before you post it online. And they're available automatically across Mail, Notes, Safari, Pages, Keynote, and even your third-party apps.
And what you see here is a common theme throughout this keynote and Apple and Big Tech's history overall. They keep adding useful features into their existing platforms to add more value and make you more productive. Is it creating a new category or showing some massive innovation? No, but it doesn't need to, and that's what critics are missing. They also showed similar capabilities around images and the ability to generate new images throughout the Apple ecosystem with context of your contacts and what you're working on. And if we pull on that thread even more, they announced how Apple Intelligence will be taking action for you as well.
Another way Apple Intelligence is deeply impactful is its ability to take action across your apps. The greatest source of tools for taking actions is already in your pocket with the apps you use every day. And we have designed Apple Intelligence so it can tap into these tools and carry out tasks on your behalf. So you can say things like, pull up the files that Jaws shared with me last week, or show me all the photos of Mom, Olivia, and me, or play the podcast that my wife sent the other day. We're designing Apple Intelligence to be able to orchestrate these and hundreds of other actions for you, so you can accomplish more while saving time.
And so this gets closer to the idea that we've talked about before, about Apple creating an effective assistant that not only can do things like generate text, images, or natural language search, but also take action and do things for you based on what it knows about you. And that idea was driven home in the next segment about personal context.
There's one more critical building block for personal intelligence, and that's an understanding of your personal context. Apple Intelligence is grounded in your personal information and context with the ability to retrieve and analyze the most relevant data from across your apps, as well as to reference the content on your screen, like an email or calendar event you're looking at. This can be incredibly useful in so many moments throughout the day. Suppose one of my meetings is being rescheduled for late in the afternoon, and I'm wondering if it's going to prevent me from getting to my daughter's play performance on time. Apple Intelligence can process the relevant personal data to assist me. It can understand who my daughter is, the play details she sent several days ago, the time and location for my meeting, and predicted traffic between my office and the theater.
And actually, one of the things that I really like about this is that it's very understated. Like, it sounds almost basic in the way that they describe it, but it's only possible because of all the data and context they have about your life. And that's what makes it pretty amazing to me. It's a lot of these little enhancements, capabilities, and assistant features that, when you add them all up, will likely add a lot of value in my daily life. Like, that's the part that really excited me. But all those things aside, I think the most important and best part of the announcement came at the end, when Apple started talking about how their intelligence features are going to be different than everyone else as it relates to privacy.
Understanding this kind of personal context is essential for delivering truly helpful intelligence, but it has to be done right. The cornerstone of the personal intelligence system is on-device processing, so it's aware of your personal data without collecting your personal data. This is only possible through our unique integration of hardware and software and our years-long investment in building advanced silicon for on-device intelligence.
Now, I know the term AI may be exciting on Wall Street these days, with AI stocks dominating in terms of performance recently, but for the general public, it's not nearly as popular, with people having concerns about what it means for their jobs, what it means for intellectual property, as well as what it means for their privacy. So Apple leaning into the privacy aspect of this really makes sense in terms of their own branding. But if you watch this channel for a while, this shouldn't have been a surprise to you, because this is what we talked about almost a full year ago. And then lastly, the thing that I don't think people are talking enough about is the power that Apple's own chips that they've been creating gives them going forward, especially as it relates to AI. Now, I hate to use the word AI because it's so overused and it's such a buzzword, but I do think it's important when you think about Apple's future. Now, when I first used a Mac with the M1 chip, I was blown away by the speed and power in such a small form factor and with such little RAM and other things that you would normally get with a computer. Like, I personally edit 4K video with a base Mac Mini M1 and a MacBook Pro M1, but even the Mac Mini can handle 4K video in its base model with the M1 chip. It's unbelievable. Now they have the M2 chips, and what I think will give them a huge advantage is the additional horsepower they can get directly tied to their own hardware. And how I think this relates to AI is Apple will have the unique ability to do AI-related processing on their own hardware, on their own chips, literally in your front pocket. So instead of having to make remote API calls to a server somewhere, if they can process some of that on device instead, it offers a lot of potential benefits for AI-related features. Better reliability, better speed, better portability of features, and lastly, better privacy. And that's something that I think is exciting about the future of Apple that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about. It would allow them to have the tightest and hopefully most seamless integration of AI features into the place where it can actually become a value add in our daily life, on our phone. And what's crazy about that is it ended up being almost exactly what Apple announced, with one twist that I wasn't expecting. And that was the introduction of private cloud compute.
When you make a request, Apple Intelligence analyzes whether it can be processed on device. If it needs greater computational capacity, it can draw on private cloud compute and send only the data that's relevant to your task to be processed on Apple Silicon servers. Your data is never stored or made accessible to Apple. It's used exclusively to fulfill your request, and just like your iPhone, independent experts can inspect the code that runs on these servers to verify this privacy promise. This sets a brand new standard for privacy and AI and unlocks intelligence you can trust.
Now, private cloud compute was arguably the single most exciting part of the event for me personally, with Apple building out end-to-end encrypted and stateless cloud infrastructure to give them more processing power for features that can't yet be done on device. And let me explain why, because the question I have about private cloud compute is, where can this actually go in the future? Obviously, for now, it's going to help offload higher level processing requests to a place that can handle them in a secure way. And I'm guessing the idea is that the private cloud compute is only going to be connected to Apple's own devices, since they said that their privacy innovations are only possible through their integration of hardware and software. But I wonder if they're looking to actually monetize their private cloud compute in other ways going forward. Maybe as part of some developer or app store feature for apps that want to take advantage of additional processing power and are willing to adhere to their increased security requirements. To me, that would be a big win for Apple, and them taking that secure and private AI branding makes a ton of sense. So the future and roadmap for private cloud compute is one that I'm going to be watching closely to see if it ends up becoming another revenue stream down the line. Apple also showed how all these features are going to be integrated into a whole new Siri experience, with all the personal context and ability to take action while keeping the same privacy elements. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but a few months back, there was news about Apple and Google talking about partnering for AI, and all people were talking about at the time was how Apple is totally done and they'd completely given up. And here's what I said at the time. The two tech giants are in talks to let Apple license Google's AI model Gemini to power some new features which would come to the iPhone software in 2024. And while obviously I think people overreacted assuming that Apple's just giving up altogether, I think it's going to be way more nuanced than that. My assumption is that Apple still plans to use their own model, but specifically for the things that they have native to your phone that others won't have. Your location data, your health data, your calendar, your call history, your preferences, because they can use that to make an extremely personalized AI type of assistant that knows you better than anyone else. And I think Apple's in a unique position to be able to do that. Plus, it kind of fits with their whole privacy focus of, hey, I have a personalized model that's on your phone, and it's not in some big, broad LLM out in the cloud somewhere. And there's been others online that are talking about this possibility as well. So what that would mean is that for everything else that's not personalized to you, that's this kind of broad search-based AI. And that's where I envision they would use Google's Gemini. Just like how search works on your iPhone today. You search for something, it looks through your apps, your email, your calendar, and then directs you to Google if that's what you want. And I expect that the AI partnership's going to be very similar to that. Well, Apple provided some clarity about what that partnership might look like, but instead of Gemini, they decided to go with ChatGPT.
Still, there are other artificial intelligence tools available that can be useful for tasks that draw on broad world knowledge or offer specialized domain expertise. We want you to be able to use these external models without having to jump between different tools. So we're integrating them right into your experiences. And we're starting out with the best of these, the pioneer and market leader ChatGPT from OpenAI, powered by GPT-4o. First, we build support into Siri, so Siri can tap into ChatGPT's expertise when it might be helpful for you. We've also integrated ChatGPT into the system-wide writing tools with Compose. You can create content with ChatGPT for whatever you're writing about. Suppose you want to create a custom bedtime story for your 6-year-old who loves butterflies and solving riddles. Put in your initial idea and send it to ChatGPT to get something back she'll love. You'll be able to access ChatGPT for free without creating an account. Your requests and information will not be logged. And for ChatGPT subscribers, you'll be able to connect your account and access paid features right within our experiences. Of course, you're in control over when ChatGPT is used and will be asked before any of your information is shared.
So clearly, a lot of these same things ended up playing out, which as an investor, I really love, because it's not about me showing you these clips to be like, oh, I was right 2 months ago. It's that when we invest in a company, we have a thesis and an expectation of what they're going to do. And when that actually happens to play out over time, it's a good feeling. All right, so that was a lot of stuff, and I didn't even show all of it. I just showed the things that I thought were the most interesting. But the big question still remains. Is it enough to bring growth back for Apple's stock? Well, let's start with just the basic availability details. These features are going to be available on iPhone 15 Pro and up, as well as any Mac or MacBook that has an M1 chip or higher. So in some cases, for people like me who have an iPhone 14 Pro, I'm going to have to make a decision of if I'm going to upgrade or not, or maybe more accurately, when I'm going to upgrade, because I have no doubt that whenever I do, it's going to be an iPhone. And I think this is a major point about Apple as a company and their products overall. Like, I see so many people talk about how Apple doesn't innovate, how their stock is overpriced and not worth it because there's no growth. And we've talked about that a lot on this channel even. Now, personally, I've already said that I think growth is going to come back over the next 2 years as the people who bought in 2021 hit their refresh cycle. And I think the features they announced this week are actually going to help that because, at least for me, I thought they were good and they made a lot of sense. But I think what people are missing about Apple is you have 1.5 billion iPhone users, and the overwhelming majority of them have no plans to have any other phone than an iPhone. And just as an example, I actually had 2 generations of Pixel phones over like a 3 to 4 year period, and me and my wife both switched over, and they were really great phones. We liked them, they did everything we needed, but then at some point one day she was like, I'm ready to go back to iPhone, and I was like, yeah, me too. And so we did, and we never looked back. So as good as the Pixel was, it just wasn't an iPhone. So the reality is that there's almost nothing that anyone can do to not make me get another iPhone when my phone's ready to refresh. Now, that refresh cycle is getting longer because the quality of phones is higher and people don't want to spend as much now as they did in 2021. So while Apple's announcements this week weren't some new innovative category, although I do think private cloud compute comes closer to that than people are giving it credit for, it was just continual progress and something that's going to make it even harder for me to ever want to leave Apple's devices and services. And honestly, I think most iPhone users feel the same way. So while people say this company is overvalued, what value would you put on 1.4 billion customers who never want to leave and are becoming more and more integrated into your high margin services? I don't really know the answer to that, but I know that my next phone is definitely going to be an iPhone. And honestly, for me, I tend to be an early adopter, so I'll likely be refreshing to get the new features. But the question will be how many others decide that it's time for them to refresh as well. Not to mention seeing where the private cloud compute story goes, since that could be a whole new thing that would separate Apple in a different category, which would be really exciting. So what do you think about Apple Intelligence and the stuff that they announced? Let me know down in the comments below. Now, if you want to see a deeper analysis on Apple and what I think about the stock's future outlook, click on this video right here. Hope you guys have a great day out there. Financial independence is true freedom, so keep building and stacking wins, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.